What if history's most advanced civilization isn't in our future, but lost somewhere in our past? An empire of impossible wealth and power that held sway over the known world. A technological utopia that vanished in an instant. This isn't science fiction. It's a story that has haunted us for over 2,000 years. Over 2,000 years ago, the Greek philosopher Plato described a paradise of engineering and riches, a city named Atlantis, swallowed by the sea in a single day and night of misfortune. He gave us a description, a rough timeline, and a location, leaving behind a set of tantalizing clues. Today, a new generation of explorers is following that trail. From the volcanic ruins of the Mediterranean to the sunken plains of the Atlantic, we're joining the hunt to answer the ultimate question. What really happened to Atlantis? The entire hunt for Atlantis begins and ends with one man, Plato. Around 360 BCE, the philosopher wrote two dialogues, the Timaeus and the Critias, that introduced the island empire to the world. He presented the story as a true account, passed down through generations. Plato claimed the tale came from his ancestor, the lawmaker Solon, who heard it from Egyptian priests with records stretching back thousands of years. They described a war that took place 9,000 years before their time. According to this account, a mighty power emerged from the Atlantic Ocean. An island nation bigger than ancient Libya and Asia combined, located just beyond the Pillars of Heracles, what we now know as the Strait of Gibraltar. This was Atlantis. For generations, the Atlanteans were noble and virtuous. The island was a gift from Poseidon, god of the sea, who fell for a mortal woman named Plato. He built her a home on a hill, surrounding it with perfect concentric rings of land and water, 3 of water and 2 of land, all connected by massive canals that ships could sail through. Plato's description is fantastically detailed. The city was a marvel of engineering and overflowing with natural resources. The soil was rich, elephants roamed the plains, and the Atlanteans built incredible temples, harbors, and barracks. The city's outer walls were coated in brass, the middle in tin, and the inner wall of the citadel flashed with the red light of orichalcum. This mysterious metal, said to be second only to gold, was mined all over the island. The city even had hot and cold running water, feeding public baths for kings and commoners alike. It was a utopia, ruled by the descendants of Poseidon in peace and virtue. But as they mixed with mortals, their divine nature began to fade. Greed and ambition took over. Intoxicated by their power, they launched an attack to conquer Europe and Asia. They swept through much of the known world, but when they came for Athens, they were met with a force that Plato described as the ideal state. This small, virtuous ancient Athens fought alone, defeated the mighty Atlantean Empire, and liberated the lands it had conquered. But the final judgment came from the gods. As punishment for their arrogance, a divine cataclysm struck. There occurred violent earthquakes and floods, Plato wrote, and in a single day and night of misfortune, the island of Atlantis disappeared into the depths of the sea. It sank beneath the waves, leaving behind an impassable mud shoal that blocked all travel into the Atlantic, hiding it from the world forever. This is the blueprint, the checklist every would-be discoverer has followed for centuries. A huge island beyond Gibraltar with a ringed capital city and a tragic end. But is it a true history or something else entirely? Many scholars, including Plato's own student Aristotle, believed the story was a fable, a philosophical tool for exploring themes of power, corruption, and divine justice. An allegory about the dangers of empire, with Atlantis serving as the ultimate cautionary tale. But for explorers, archaeologists, and dreamers, the details feel too specific, too vivid to be just fiction. They believe Plato's story is a memory of a real place and a real catastrophe, warped by time. And if it is real, the hunt for evidence must begin. If we take Plato's story as a historical lead, the first question is obvious. Where do we even look? The text gives us a starting point. Beyond the Pillars of Heracles, placing Atlantis firmly in the Atlantic Ocean. The problem? For all our modern deep-sea mapping, we found no sign of a sunken, continent-sized island on the Atlantic floor. This huge contradiction has led many investigators to a radical idea. What if Plato, or his sources, got the location wrong? What if the disaster happened closer to home, right in the heart of the Greek world? This brings us to our first major candidate, the Greek island of Santorini. Today, Santorini is a stunning, crescent-shaped jewel of the Aegean. But it wasn't always this way. Around 1600 BCE, the island, then called Thera, was a large, single, round island and home to a flourishing outpost of the Minoan civilization. The Minoans were Europe's first great civilization, a Bronze Age powerhouse with a vast naval trading empire, stunning art, and incredible engineering, including multi-story buildings with indoor plumbing. Then, in one of the largest volcanic eruptions in human history, the mountain at the island's center blew apart. The blast, hundreds of times more powerful than the bomb that destroyed Hiroshima, blew the heart out of the island. The center collapsed into the sea, forming the massive water-filled crater, or caldera, we see today. Tsunamis from the explosion are thought to have crippled coastal communities across the Mediterranean, including on Crete, the center of Minoan power. An entire island culture wiped out in a cataclysm. The parallels to Plato's story are uncanny. A powerful, advanced island civilization, dominant at sea, destroyed by a natural disaster that sank its land. Excavations at Akrotiri, a Minoan city on Santorini perfectly preserved by volcanic ash, reveal a city of shocking sophistication. There are walled streets, three-story buildings, and vibrant frescoes of a seafaring people. No human remains were found, which suggests the inhabitants had enough warning to evacuate, but their city was lost in an instant. Could this be it? Could the eruption of Thera be the real event that inspired the Atlantis legend? The theory is compelling. A memory of this world-changing disaster could have been passed down for centuries, eventually reaching the Egyptian priests. But the timeline is a huge problem. Plato says Atlantis was destroyed 9,000 years before his time, around 9600 BCE. The Thera eruption happened around 1600 BCE, a gap of nearly 8,000 years. Supporters suggest a translation error. Maybe the Egyptian records meant 900 years, not 91, which would shrink the gap considerably. But the biggest issue is geography. Santorini is in the Aegean Sea, east of mainland Greece. Plato is clear that Atlantis was in the Atlantic Ocean, west of the Pillars of Heracles. And while a collapsed volcano might echo a sinking island, it doesn't match the specific artificial rings of land and water Plato described. For many, Santorini is a near miss. It's a powerful story of a lost paradise, but it's not the story Plato told. While the destruction of Minoan Thera was a civilization-ending catastrophe, the key details, location, size, and timeline just don't add up. If Atlantis isn't in the Mediterranean, we have to go back to Plato's original directions and head out into the open Atlantic. If Santorini doesn't fit the geographic checklist, then perhaps we should take Plato's words literally. He placed Atlantis in front of the mouth of the Pillars of Heracles, a clue that has led searchers to one region above all others: southern Spain and the waters just beyond the Strait of Gibraltar. One of the most talked about locations is a vast wetland known as Doñana National Park. Geologists believe this area was once a wide-open bay. In 2011, a team led by Professor Richard Freund investigated the region, using satellite imagery and ground-penetrating radar. They claim to have found a series of memorial cities buried in the mud, supposedly built by refugees who fled Atlantis. Their theory argued that a massive tsunami, a known geological event in this area, could have wiped out a major coastal city, matching Plato's description of destruction by sea. This theory often connects Atlantis to Tartessos, a wealthy, semi-mythical Bronze Age civilization that thrived in this part of Spain and vanished from the historical record. Its location fits, and its reputation for immense mineral wealth lines up with Plato's descriptions. More recently, private research groups like Merlin Burroughs have made headlines claiming they found the concentric rings of Atlantis right there in the Doñana mudflats, visible on satellite scans. They've even presented material they claim is ancient concrete, dating back thousands of years. However, these claims are not accepted by mainstream archaeologists. Many scientists argue the circular features are likely natural formations or structures from a much later period. Without peer-reviewed data, these discoveries remain on the fringe. Other theories push further into the Atlantic. Some have pointed to the Azores Islands as the mountain peaks of a sunken continent. But modern geology has debunked this. There's no evidence a large landmass ever existed there and simply sank. From the marshes of Doñana to the volcanic seamounts in the deep, the area around Spain remains a tantalizing hotspot. The location is a perfect match for Plato's primary clue. But the evidence remains fragmented and fiercely contested. We have hints of ancient tsunamis and sunken structures, but we have not found a perfect, undeniable match for Plato's grand, ringed city. The Spanish theories provide compelling puzzle pieces, but the complete picture remains just out of reach. So, after centuries of searching, where does that leave us? We have a compelling candidate in Santorini, a civilization destroyed by a volcano that echoes Plato's story but clashes with the facts. We have tantalizing but unproven claims in Spain, a location that matches Plato's directions but has yet to reveal a lost super-civilization. And we have geological curiosities in the Atlantic that hint at sunken land, but nothing that supports a continent vanishing 12,000 years ago. The overwhelming consensus among mainstream historians and archaeologists today is that Atlantis, as Plato described it, never existed. They argue that the search for a physical Atlantis is a fool's errand because Plato was never writing history. He was a philosopher, and his story of Atlantis is most likely a brilliant and complex allegory. In this view, Atlantis is a cautionary tale about hubris, a thought experiment showing what happens when a powerful society becomes corrupt. By inventing a fictional, larger-than-life enemy for ancient Athens to defeat, Plato could highlight the superiority of the humble, just state he championed in works like the Republic. He set the story 9,000 years in the past and far out in the Atlantic to give it the weight of legend and keep his contemporaries from getting bogged down in the literal details. And yet, the idea that the story is purely fiction feels unsatisfying to many. It's possible the legend isn't a single truth, but a composite memory. It could be the story of the Minoan collapse on Thera, merged with garbled tales of Tartessos in Spain, and memories of the real floods and earthquakes that have always plagued the region. The story might not be a photograph of one lost civilization, but a collage of many. And so, the hunt continues. Because whether Atlantis was a real place or a philosophical lesson, its power is undeniable. The story taps into a deep human longing for a lost golden age. It asks profound questions. What makes a civilization great? Is it technology and wealth, or wisdom and virtue? And just how fragile are the societies we build? The evidence points in a dozen different directions, and the final answer could still be out there. What do you think? Was Atlantis a real place destroyed in a cataclysm? Was it the Minoan civilization on Santorini? Or was it all just an elaborate philosophical story? Let us know your theory in the comments below. Perhaps the true legacy of Atlantis isn't a city buried beneath the waves, but the enduring mystery it represents. It's a story that has inspired explorers and dreamers for over 2 millennia, pushing us to explore the depths of our oceans and our own history. The search for Atlantis is, in many ways, a search for ourselves, for a better understanding of where we came from and the lessons left by those who came before. While we may never find the golden temples of Poseidon, the quest itself continues to fuel our imagination. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the past. If you enjoyed this exploration of lost civilizations, be sure to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next investigation.